Hey guys, how you going? It's sad that this might be the actual last video I make from Perth. I'm moving back to Sydney in the second week of April, and I started a new job in May. It's the same company, just a different store. But yeah, I just feel like it's time for me to go home. It's been a crazy 2 years. Been lots of drama, lots of fun, made friends along the way, made mistakes along the way, learnt lessons along the way, but I feel like God's calling me back to Sydney, and I feel like my time here is over, even though I didn't make a difference in Perth like I wanted to, because I was too wrapped up in myself and forgot about others. But I've learned that living for yourself is like drinking salty water. It just leaves you thirsty, and it's only when you live for others do you find true fulfillment. And I think the longer I stay in Perth, the more people I'm going to hurt, because I feel like maybe I was never supposed to come. Maybe I wasn't supposed to leave Sydney. But then again, God has free will, so He's done the best with the time I've done here. And the great thing is I'll have an even stronger testimony when I get back to Sydney. When I get back to Sydney, I want to start a degree in business and finance and help people financially. I want to go back to church. I want to go back to teaching scripture in the high school, and just want to go back to living a life pleasing to God and not to myself all the time, because I feel like the whole time here I've been chasing girls and money, and it just leaves you empty. And I didn't realise how lucky I was to have such a strong Christian upbringing. But I guess leaving my nest, leaving the Christian nest and the Christian securities of Sydney and coming to Perth with no Christian environment just shows how weak you really are. And it's important to be in a Christian environment where you can bounce off each other and encourage each other in the faith. I was watching the Christian channel on Foxtel today, and the first time I've watched it in a long time, and it was saying something about in the Civil War, the black slaves, they were made free. They brought in new legislation which made them free. Means that it was against the law to have slaves, but what the owners would do was not teach the slaves how to read and write, so therefore if they didn't know how to read and write, they'd never know that they're actually free the whole time. And I feel like that's with us as Christians or humans, is that we're free. Jesus has died on the cross, and we're free from sin, we're free from fear and evil and oppression. But until we read the Bible, until we read the legislation, we don't know it. We don't realise it. And just like the slaves in the Civil War didn't know they were free until they read the legislation, just because they thought they were slaves and would never be free doesn't mean they actually were free. And I think that's a lot of us. We look around, we look at our reality, and we think, oh, what can we do? You know, we're trapped by this, we're trapped by that, and there's no way out. And I feel like that all this time I could have, if I wasn't looking at the reality and looking to the heavens, I would have realised that God was there all along, and He could have got me out of those sticky situations, instead of me having to work 2 jobs and, you know, bust my back trying to, You know, I spent hours and hours and hours and hours of my free time looking at ways of making money on the internet, looking at ways of getting out of my debt, when really I could have just called out to God and trusted in Him. And now I realise, now that I'm getting closer to God, I realise that the whole chase for money, what good is it if you don't have His Spirit? You know, I even wrote on my Facebook, started off poor, ending up rich. And I've rewritten that, so it says starting off poor, ending up rich, not in finance, but in spirit. Because I was focusing too much on my financial situation and not my spiritual situation. But what good is money if you don't have God guiding you? And I feel like God only made the Jews rich because He knew that they would use the money wisely. But look at King Solomon and all his wealth. When he turned away from God and started sinning, God destroyed the temple. And God took away all the gifts He'd given him. So in a sense, money is a gift. And the only reason, you know, we make a profit in the business, or the only reason Microsoft has made money or Google's made money, is because God wills it. And they shouldn't forget that. And I shouldn't forget that. That it needs to be 99% God and 1% me. Anyway, I bet you're surprised I'm talking about God again after all this time, but what's 2 years away from God when you look at all eternity away from God? And Moses went 40 years in the desert. I've only been 2 years in the desert, so that was pretty good. But this is not going to be the first time or the last time I stray away from God, because as humans, we unfortunately, our scientific world focuses too much on the reality and the physical and not enough on the spiritual. And thank God, literally, for the Christian channel on the Foxtel, because if it wasn't for that, I would have no source of, you know, seeking Him. It was just by mistake that I flipped it over, and it was just got hooked watching it. And thanks for my friend Stay Human for catching up with me the other day and speaking some truth into my life, and watching you and how you live your life just makes me really realise what I'm missing. And I was looking at you the other day preaching to that guy at the pub, and I was like, that used to be me. That was me like 2 years ago. It was like I was looking in the mirror of the past and realising that, you know, where did I go wrong? Where did I go wrong? Alright guys, well that's enough for now, but I'll be definitely speaking again soon. And I miss you guys. I was looking at all my YouTube videos and I realised that, like, you know, a lot of the time this is what kept me going in the early years, was doing these YouTube videos, because it gave me a purpose, it gave me a reason, you know. I was looking for you guys and not myself, and that's when I was truly happy, is when you look for others. Like I went to work the other day and I was focusing on the customer, not the money I was making every hour, but the joy and the peace I was giving to the customer. And a customer came up to me the other day and said, do you remember me? And I was like, yeah, I remember you. And she was like, oh, about a year ago you said something really nice about my husband when he was in hospital, and I always remember you the way you showed so much compassion towards me and my husband. And just letting you know, my husband passed away last month, but what you said to me meant a lot, and it really, really helped me. And I was like, I don't even remember what I said to her, but I must have said something, and maybe God used those words and spoke to her in some way. But it just goes to show, like, even in the middle of, you know, a petrol station in Western Australia, God can move. And I think the problem is, I left God back in Sydney, but You can like a boy.